I break it down into like, ask people what they want, create it, and then sell it to them. Very simple. If we can validate what we're creating before we create it, you can create products that people actually want to buy.
For today's episode, I am joined by Landon Poburan, who is a digital marketing strategist, online creator, and serial entrepreneur who built 9 different businesses over the past 2 decades. Landon, I'm really excited to have you here, man.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this. When I saw you guys were launching the show, I was like, I hope they ask me to come on because I love connecting with you guys. I love sharing my message. So I'm super excited that you guys brought me on today.
So let's talk about marketing first. I know that for our audience, online creators, solopreneurs, marketing can really be a challenge, and some of them might even like cringe at the idea of marketing their newsletter, marketing themselves, marketing their work. Where do you think that this resistance towards marketing comes from, and what's one of the first steps to take to overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think it's definitely something that just so many of us experience. So much of my audience is people that are kind of getting started on Substack. And so I have a lot of these conversations, and it's still things that I experience from time to time. There's this little bit of kind of imposter syndrome, this little bit of fear of what people are going to think. Like it takes a lot of courage to put ourselves out there online. I wrote a post, I think it was last week actually, where I kind of shared how as I've grown, I've got started to get a lot more negative feedback than I expected. And it's kind of affected me in interesting ways. But at the end of the day, if we want to grow a business online, it's going to require marketing and sales. It's just kind of part of the game. If we want to make money, we need something to sell and we need somebody to sell it to in its simplest form. So it's going to require building an audience, whether that's through organic, whether that's through advertising, whether it's through collaborations, and it's going to require us to talk about what we do in some way, shape, or form. Now, when it comes to things like imposter syndrome and those fears, sometimes it has to do with things that are very valid. Like we may lack experience. Maybe we're just getting started. Maybe I have just got my first certification in marketing. I got my first client, and I may be a little bit fearful of trying to educate people on what to do or sell my first product. And I think it's really important to let people know that that's okay. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something that is like you're the only one that's experienced it. We all experience it from time to time, especially when we're started. And a lot of times just building positive momentum and through experience, we move through some of those things. So a lot of my message is just kind of centered around trusting in the process, that the more we do things, generally speaking, the better we get at them, the more we refine our skill sets. So trying to take a little bit of like a be kind to yourself throughout that, I think is really important for people. Also, shifting the narrative from you to I think can be really helpful. This is something I still to this day, I really try and teach through my own experiences. I'm always trying to speak up, here's what I did, here's something you could consider, as opposed to trying to be very kind of like declarative and directive and like preachy on people. I also recognize that my experiences show me that everything works. So I try and avoid telling people, do this one thing. You can shift it from saying you to saying I, especially in those early stages, kind of what would be almost referred to as like building in public, so to speak. Speaking, educating, and teaching through your own experiences can help kind of reduce a little bit of the anxiety that gets created with sharing your message and marketing yourself. And then it kind of comes to, you know, there is I think it's really important to focus on integrity, slowly starting to kind of like establish what your values are when it comes to how you want to market your business. So offering people the ability to reflect on what they don't like. If there is something that makes you cringe, what is it? Make a note of that. For me, it's like pitchy DMs, high hyped, high pressure sales. When somebody's like pressuring me to make a decision right now, that makes me cringe. So I try and remove those things from what I do and bring forth into my marketing, creating a little bit of kind of like a values-based approach to how you come and approach marketing, and then just kind of like strap in, like it's going to be a journey. It's part of the game. We got to do it, but not having the expectation that like we don't need to go out and have a six-figure launch like the day after we create a product or start doing what we're doing.
One thing that really stood out to me, what you said, was shifting the perspective from you to I, and I think that's a game changer. I say this a lot to our clients as well, where you don't need to see yourself as a guru, but as a guide, right? And if you, I think that's maybe back in the early 2000s, like a lot of self-help books or business books were like preachy and like a guru approach. Like here's what you need to do in order to reach certain goals, versus here's what I did, everything that worked well for me, that I messed up, that didn't work for me, and you could take it or leave it. Like I'm just going to share my journey, my lessons, my insights, including the messy parts. And I think that takes a lot of the pressure off of like marketing as well, because now you no longer need to have all the answers. You don't need to pretend to be a guru. You're just sharing from your own perspective and your own experiences. Again, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And that feels more authentic. And I think when your messaging, including your offers, right, feel more authentic, then maybe marketing or selling doesn't feel so sleazy because it really comes from a true source, from yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're moving into an era where this is almost becoming a pattern interrupt, like being authentic, being vulnerable, not having all of the answers. I have people that DM me every now and then like, hey, is this product right for me? And they're like, I'm like, I don't think so. Like, based on what you've said, like this is where I think it could help you. But I have my product, Subliminal Selling, and he was like a poet and posts poetry, and he's like, do you think that this would be helpful for me? And I'm like, I don't think so. It's a little bit more tailored to people that have like a specific skill and are selling more of a specific service. And for somebody that's just trying to share their writing, like, I don't think that this course is going to be beneficial for you. I'm like, if you have, if you're looking to maybe teach people poetry or turn that into more of an education business, possibly. But I was like, as it stands now, I'm like, I don't think this is for you. So I think that authenticity, and especially so turning it back on ourselves, is really valuable. But I think when we look at business over the long term, I'm not concerned what works today. I want to know what's going to build a brand for the future, and being more authentic and kind of honoring what I think is realistic, I think is really going to allow people to kind of set them apart, but feel more, just good with the marketing of themselves.
Absolutely. And also what you said earlier, right? Like if you notice some things from other marketers or certain strategies or certain tactics and you really don't like it, it makes you cringe, it doesn't make you feel good, you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to use those strategies. In fact, the best marketing doesn't even feel like marketing. I think that is really like the essence of what we're talking about. Is if you have an authentic message and you feel like you can help people, but you also know who you could help and who you can't help or can't serve, like you just mentioned, Landon, with the poet, right? You know, like, hey, you're not really my target audience, and that level of clarity helps you to actually like sell and market in a very natural way, because you can also say, hey, this is not my ideal customer and this is my ideal customer, and I know that. So now I don't have to be like this pushy car salesperson, right? Trying to make a sale no matter what. No, marketing can be like, oh, here's what I do, here's what I have to offer, and I think this could actually help you or not. And I think that way marketing becomes more authentic rather than like sleazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to depend on where people are at in their journey. So if you are somebody that's been, like I've been around marketing for, nearly 2 decades, doing it myself, helping others do it, I've got a really good understanding of where my strengths lie, what I enjoy doing. I've spent, over six figures in masterminds and courses. So I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of tactics that I don't like. But a philosophy that I've really adopted for myself is kind of like incremental experimentation. Everything is an experiment. Never afraid to try something, but just realizing that it's all just navigating me to get closer to kind of like my way, finding what works best for me. And when we're just starting, sometimes we just need to try things and then we see if we like it. We might not know. So, like the DM stuff, I've DM'd people to generate sales. I am not a fan of the strategy. The strategy works. I have like old friends and acquaintances that have built six-figure a month businesses with doing nothing but sending people DMs on LinkedIn. There's still writing programs out there, ghostwriting programs out there that talk about the way to get clients when you have no clients is just to go out and cold DM people. And the strategy works. I have friends that have kind of spins on that strategy. I have a good friend, he calls it the go-giver strategy. So there's ways to do things more authentically, but sometimes it's just experimenting, understanding what we're trying to do things, see what works, see what we like, see what we don't like, strip away the bad stuff, add more of the good stuff, and just continue on our way. Like that's what I love about this journey in business is that it's just always evolving. And that's what makes it so much fun.
I really like that idea of treating it as an experiment. Even if you might already have a hunch that you're not going to enjoy a method, you can still try it out and experiment, and then you know. But that's also how you discover the way of marketing that you find enjoyable and that you're good at, right? Because maybe you're not good in the DMs, but maybe you're very good on a live stream, or you're maybe very good at copywriting or direct sales emails, but you have to try it out, treat it like an experiment, because then you also can't fail because it's an experiment, right? And an experiment, the goal is to see what methods work, but first you have to go through all the methods that don't work for you. So yeah, I really like that, Landon.
Mhm.
Um, One other question. I think a lot of online creators, they fear that selling will like alienate their audience, right? So if you have let's say you have a course, you have a coaching program, you have a paid newsletter, then running a promotion or selling that will like alienate their audience. What's your take on that?
Well, it's it's not entirely wrong. So if we're going to be very honest, we know that only like, if we think of like the spectrum of like 1 to 3% of your audience is going to be ready to purchase at any time, kind of like direct response marketing principles. I send out an email. I know that there's going to be probably upwards of 0 to 1% of people are going to unsubscribe from every email I send. So right there, I'm alienating people that I'm going to send them a message, regardless of if it's a sales email, people will unsubscribe. I think, I believe Active Campaign has stats. You churn like I don't know, 20 to 30% of your list every year or something like that in terms of when you're emailing regularly. So regardless, like we're not going to be for everyone. And that's kind of the point. Like we want to find like attracts like. Usually people might just want to be following you. They might never want to purchase. You might put out a sales message. They might unsubscribe. They might resubscribe in the future. Marketers like Frank Kern, Alex Catoni, I have subscribed and unsubscribed from their email lists like more times than I can even count, because they'll put me into a sales sequence and I'd be like, no, I don't like it's stressing me out getting one email every single day. And then they'll, 2 weeks later to be like, hey, do you want my free guide on this? And then I'll sign up, and I've purchased products from all of these people. So I think it's part of marketing. We don't need to be for everybody. But I think when we start to get closer to what feels best to us, then we can start to be more confident about the ways that we're going about marketing. It's okay to sell. If we're in a business that runs on capitalism and we kind of have to make sales if we want to run our business, so there's nothing inherently wrong. It's more so finding the most authentic way to do it. Find what works for you. Allow yourself to be authentic in what you're doing when you're solving problems that you think are going to generally benefit people for the better. I think you can feel good about what you're doing, but just understand like you're not going to be for everybody, regardless of what you price, how little or how much. There's going to be people that think it's too cheap. There will be people that think it's too expensive. And that's just kind of the world that we live in. So there's this kind of like realism to it that I really like to kind of ground people in. Like it's okay, it's not bad. You're going to repel some people, you're going to attract some people over here. You just got to kind of find your own path with what feels best for you on this journey.
hmm I think that's a great point. It's completely okay in that sense to maybe alienate is not the right word, right? But if you have an offer that you know can help people and you're promoting it, you're doing a marketing campaign for it, people will unsubscribe and it's completely okay, right? It's completely fine. Because also, I think a lot of people confuse building an audience with building a business, but they're not the same thing necessarily, right? If you want to build an online business, yes, you need an audience, but having an audience does not equal having an online business, right? You do need that, what you said, the two components. You need people to sell to, that's your audience, but you also need to sell. And if you're afraid of like alienating people or people like unsubscribing or maybe sometimes leaving like nasty comments or nasty emails, which you will have with running an online business, unfortunately. But it's part of it. And I think you can be okay with having those unsubscribes, especially when people are buying your offers and getting value from it and actually like making improvements in their life or in their business, right? You're actually helping people, then those unsubscribes are completely fine. Because ultimately, you are running a business, right? So you do need to sell and you do need to generate revenue. Landon, let's shift the conversation to one of the workshops that you actually run, your Subliminal Selling Workshop, which I know is very popular. Can you talk a little bit about what the Subliminal Selling method actually is?
Yeah, so it was actually the name came from someone in my audience, Brian. He's like, "Oh, this is like subliminal selling," and I'm like, "I really want to turn that into a product." And he's like, "Go for it." So I was like, "Okay, I'm going to call it subliminal selling." So all of the credit goes to Brian. And big shout out to him for that. But the concept, just to give you an example, I'm not sure about you or anybody listening, but I've created a lot of products that didn't sell. I have spent months creating products before having any idea if people were going to buy them. And I've ran, 13, $15 million in paid advertising, ran teams, and I've worked with a lot of people that try and sell programs that have no market validation. And it's not fun. They're spending hundreds, thousands of dollars on ads and nobody's purchasing this product and they don't know why. I try and keep things as simple as I possibly can for my business because I work with so many people that are getting started, creating their first product. I want to try and find, okay, what's going to work for that person? It's going to be very simple, not going and spending 4 months creating a 12 module course, video production recorded in a studio, video editors creating it, hundreds of dollars of software a month to host it. It's like, how can we distill this down to the simplest form? So like I break it down into like, ask people what they want, create it, and then sell it to them. And then just like offer them the solution. Very simple. If we can validate what we're creating before we create it, we can start to shift that. I have no idea if people want this because they have already told us they wanted it before we start to create it. So the whole philosophy of subliminal selling is rooted inside of creating validation so that you can create products that people actually want to buy. That's really kind of what it distills down into. And then educating people on all of the signals that are being given to us, telling us exactly what people want. So instead of trying to go, what should I create? Oh, well, I do XYZ service, so I'm going to create a product on that. I help people with stress, how to overcome stress. And it's like, well, is that what people actually want? Or is it like this one little minute specific thing? Who's it for? What's the specific purpose? How does that show up in their lives? We find all of that inside of what we're doing. So let's use Substack, for example. Every piece of content that gets a like, every comment, every restack, every DM I get, every single one of those things is like a signal indicating what people are looking for. It's telling me what problems that they're solving through the questions that they're asking. It tells me what things that they're interested in from the content that they're restacking and engaging in. I can take that. I can have conversations with people when I jump on calls. They're telling me what their problems are. When I can take that information, I can ask my community what they're looking for. And then I can go and create solutions to that on the back end. And then when I go and sell it to them, I already know that people are looking for this. So it's kind of where that philosophy is rooted into, is just trying to like simplify that process of creating your first or your next product, validate it first, then create it, and then you can sell something that you know that the market actually wants.
What's one of your favorite ways to really validate demand?
So I think it depends on where we're at in our journey. So if you have an established audience, whether that's on Substack, Instagram, an email list, you could pretty much go out and ask people what they want. Like you could create a thread in your chat on Substack and be like, hey, what's the biggest problems that you're looking to do right now? Or it can just literally be like 17 people have asked me this exact same question. This product was created because I kept getting like, I want to monetize, but I don't know what to create. I want to make money, but I don't know what to sell. Okay, well, I'm going to create a product around that. And then what I did was I created a little poll inside of a chat thread and was like, thinking about creating a workshop. which one of these topics are you most interested in, and like how to create and validate your first product on Substack and make money using your Substack audience was one of those options. And that's what everybody wanted. And that became subliminal selling. But if you have like an email, you can do the same thing, kind of just like a survey. I refer to them as invisible surveys. It's a term from my business partner, Travis Motley, where you're kind of utilizing questions where people don't necessarily, you're not misleading people, but they don't know you're taking that data to go create something on the back end. On Instagram, it could be a poll where they're literally selecting options, or you're asking them questions, getting them to DM you. So literally just getting engagement from the community so that they're either telling you exactly what they want, or they're giving you their questions, their problems, their goals that they're experiencing or striving to achieve, and they're telling you what they are so that you can go and create like the specific solution that they're looking for.
Yeah, and I really want to like stress the importance of validating demand because I mean I learned this the hard way when I ran my first business productivity newsletter. Some of the first products I created were all because I thought they were cool. I was like, oh, this is a cool idea. I am into morning routines. Let me create a morning routine course, because people are going to love it. I was only looking at my own perspective, what I was excited about, and didn't really validate if my audience actually wanted it, if it actually solved the problem they were facing. So I learned the hard way that, like don't do that. First check with your audience if it's actually something they're struggling with, if there's actually demand for it. And I started doing that over and over again, like you said, Landon, in emails. Just sometimes it was a poll, sometimes it was just ending it with a question like, what is your number one goal right now? And what is your number one obstacle preventing you from that goal? And I would get so many answers, people saying, like, okay, my goal is to write a book. My goal is to build a business. My goal is to get in better shape. Pretty different goals. But the one common struggle they all faced, the one problem most of my audience faced was I never follow through. I procrastinate. I set goals and I'm excited for a few days and then I just don't continue with it. In other words, procrastination, right? That was their main struggle, their main problem. And when I actually created a course around procrastination, how to overcome it, like that actually sold and it sold well. And it was really like, oh, you listen to your audience, ask them questions, see what they're struggling with, and they're happy to tell you, right? People are happy to tell you because they want the solution to it. So I really want to stress that validating is really the foundational step here.
Mhm.
Let's say that someone has validated demand, then what? Like, how do they go about creating the actual product?
Yeah, like this is like an entire masterclass in and amongst itself, but I try and just keep it simple. So I think if we're trying to think of the simplest way to turn something into a product, I think that is through either you're selling a call, you are selling a workshop, like a video workshop, or you're selling like some sort of very quick action piece of thing where they can put it to use very quickly, a swipe file, a template, or something like that. It's going to depend on what you're teaching, what problem you're trying to solve. But I think we overcomplicate offers where we're like, okay, well, I need to create this course. It's got to be 12 modules. It's got to be, I've read that, 6 weeks and, 3-month programs or what everybody wants. And it's got to have, weekly group calls and all of these things. And it's like, no, people just want specific problems to get solved. Like literally today, Substack has released banner photos. I'm like, damn it, now I got to create a freaking banner photo. I saw somebody that was like, hey, I've in my feed, someone that has engaged on my content wrote a post that was like, check out my new banner. I've created 100 of these for people on LinkedIn. Should I do this on Substack? I replied to him. I was like, yes. I sent him a DM. I'm like, what are you charging to create that? Because I don't want to. Specific solutions to specific problems are where we want to start. Allow, like, if it's a first product, it's your next product, it's a low ticket product. It doesn't have to be this big thing. I like to go MVP, minimal viable product, minimal viable solution to get started, especially for people that are getting started, looking to build momentum. Procrastination, imposter syndrome are going to creep in when we want to create a 12 module course and every module's got 6 lessons and now it's going to take you 6 months to do and you just never get around to do it. But if you could do something as simple as like, hey, I'm doing a live, like you have validated that somebody wants one thing. So something I'm working on right now is how to turn coaching calls into Substack posts in 10 minutes. So, okay, if I know that people are interested in this from things that I've done, and now that is going to become a workshop, the recording of that workshop will become the product. So I'm gonna run this workshop. I'm gonna take it and I'm going to turn that into a product. Like that's one of the simplest ways we could do it. It could be a paid workshop where now the recording is now an evergreen product that we sell. You could do it free for people, and then you just take the recording. Maybe you edit out the Q&A at the end. That becomes a product. Like these are things that are very simple. Or I could ask a question and somebody in the DMs and be like, "Would you like help with that?" And they say yes, and I just sell them on a call. Like there's an offer. Or I
Mhm.
sell them on 4 calls. Like, yeah, I think we can work with this, over like a call every 2 weeks over the next 2 months, and I can help you get that result. Is that something you'd be interested in? We don't need to overcomplicate offer creation.
Mm.
Solve a specific problem, allow yourself to graduate to more complex things.
Yeah, and the example you mentioned, right, of like turning a coaching call into a Substack post, that's literally a problem we are facing at Right Build Skill and would want to like would eager pay to have that solved. So I love that that's already like validating demand right there. But that shows how specific it can be, right? You don't have to create this flagship thing, but make it very specific. And I think that's can be a challenge, especially if you're an expert, an educator, you're very passionate about a certain topic. I think that passion can sometimes lead into wanting to teach everything, share everything because you're passionate about the topic. But then in reality, you're going to overwhelm your customer and they're not going to finish it. So keep it specific, solve a specific problem.
Yeah, it's too much information becomes a detriment, not a selling feature. Because I think I have posts coming out on this. It's funny. We misunderstand what people are purchasing. People aren't purchasing information. They don't want a vault of 500 of your oldest newsletters, because what that is now, it's like an investment in them. They're not only paying to get access, they're like investing in the possibility that something in there is going to solve a problem. They're never going to read them. They're never going to consume them. They're going to be left with either having to ask questions or trying to go into like, I'm struggling with this, and hoping that somewhere in your search they can find a solution to a problem they're experiencing. We can start smaller and go like that thing, just like you said, we're struggling with that right now. Well, this is the perfect product for you. That could be something that could be inside of this like massive Substack course, but you might not need that. You need that one thing. It's like a problem that you had on Tuesday. It's like my post coming out, it's called like solving Tuesday morning problems. This person, I woke up today, I saw that now I needed a banner photo. Somebody popped up and said, I can make a banner photo. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to create that. And now I'm going to pay him to do it for me. Simple problems, I think that's the best place to start. We can get fancy and create Google Docs that sell bigger solutions and bigger courses, but at the end of the day, the more specific something is, the more it's going to resonate for the right person. The broader we get, the more we try and get, will potentially help us in the future, but it also starts to detract. If people they don't know the exact solution that they're going to get from something, they might tune it out. Like there's just these little things that become takeaways from our offers and pull power away from it and stop amplifying it, that it's difficult because we're told we need irresistible offers, and we're told we need, 10x value stacks and upsells, downsells, cross sells, bonuses. And it's just become so overwhelming. I really try and simplify it for people and go like, I've watched people make $100,000 a month. All they do is send emails, and when somebody's interested, they send them a link to a Google Doc. I'm like, things can be simple. We don't need to overcomplicate this process. You don't need a fancy sales page. Like, you can create those things if you want, but no, you don't have to. That's the biggest thing I try and get across to people.
So now someone has validated demand. They have created a specific specific product. How would someone now go about making their first sales?
Yeah, so I think when we want to get, we can kind of think of it as breaking it into kind of two components. So we got like a launch, and then we have kind of like evergreen sales. I'm using air quotes for anybody that's listening, but the launch is kind of like a one-time thing, which is can be varying degrees. It could be a 3 to 7 day proper sequence with, 3 emails, 5 emails, 7 emails. I don't think we need to go that crazy. I think an announcement email, letting people know what you created. Emails can be out to like your kit list. It could be out as like I refer to them as dark posts, so like emails to your list that aren't posts on Substack. But you can also do this inside of your Substack notes. So like I post a lot of sales emails as Substack notes that generate me sales. So people will be like, I'll have stuff that has 0 likes, but it generated me 3 sales on one of the products that I was promoting. So announcing things. And then I try and take a little bit of a different approach when I'm selling through email. So instead of talking about here's my thing, here's the benefits, like that might be in one of the emails, but I usually try and lead a little bit more towards storytelling, delivering insights where the solution that they're trying to solve is inside of the product that I created. So speaking to what they're experiencing, validating their pain, giving them the insight and that transformation, and be like, that's why I created this thing. You can get it here. So when I'm launching something new, I literally try and keep it as simple as possible because I try and live what I'm teaching people. So I'm usually probably going to do 3 to 5 emails, 3 to 5 messages one time. And then I'm going to take what worked and then I'm going to turn that into something that is evergreen. And by evergreen, I mean an automated email sequence that's bolted onto the back of a welcome sequence triggered based on somebody's behavior. So we're getting a little bit more technical here, but turning it into something that kind of works in the background when I don't necessarily have to like manually click and write and have it published. So I want to do it one time live. I'm going to send out these emails. I'm going to take what worked best, make some tweaks to it. I'm going to bolt it into some sort of automation or sequence that will run on autopilot. I might add it into if I have a product suite. So like my subliminal selling, now that I created another product, which is a template pack for Substack, subliminal selling became the upsell for that other product. And then you can also leverage posts like the featured section inside of your Substack where you can create a post. I kind of call them like mini sales pages on Substack. Create your little banner photo. You can write a little bit of a sales message. It could even be a copy and paste of one of your top performing emails with a link to it at the bottom. That becomes like pinned on your Substack homepage. Now everybody that comes to your profile now sees it. So we're just trying to create entry points for people into these products and then creating just kind of like a rhythm where we're talking about it. You might have posts that now, if you're referencing kind of like the same topic or talking about the same problem, you can just simply reference your product. I try and have at least one Substack note that's promoting things every week. I try and have at least a link to something inside of every one of my articles, whether it's at the bottom or kind of linked to throughout inside of a post. I bolt everything back onto an email sequence. And anytime I'm talking about something, when it feels right to casually transition and reference something, I will. So I've had people on Substack Lives that I've done where I'm kind of talking about my subliminal selling process. While we're live, they will go and buy it and then comment that they just bought my product. So we don't necessarily have to, it's kind of when we were talking about like alienating our audience. When we're solving real problems that they're experiencing, it's not necessarily alienating people. And when we can stand behind the process that we're utilizing and selling people, then we can feel good about what we're doing. But if I was selling something that I had no experience in and I'm terrified of the bad reviews because I don't actually know what I'm talking about, yeah, that's probably not the best way to go about doing it.
Mm. It's so powerful to just mention your product. You're not selling it, you're not actively promoting it or not aggressively promoting it. But I think that's such an underrated, let's call it marketing strategy, where you're just mentioning it. It's like this exists and you could check it out. It might be helpful to you. You're not even mentioning that. It's like you're maybe in an article linking to your product and whoever's interested can check it out. And I think if you do that over and over again, repeat it over weeks and months, then people will know that you have this product, you have this course, you have this workshop. And then when the time is right, they will buy it because you've mentioned it a lot of times already. So they know you have it, it exists, but when the time is right, they will be there to buy it without any need for like an aggressive promo. It's something I talk a lot about to our clients as well. Just mention it. Just link to it here and there. Just drop it in a live stream like you said, Landon, and then you actually have someone on the live stream like hearing it and checking it out and buying it live while you're not even doing a pitch for it. I think that's a really cool example. And yeah, Landon, I love how actionable this whole method is of the subliminal selling method. So we will link to the workshop as well in the show notes for those of you
Sweet.
interested in checking it out.
And do podcasts about it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I try and just simplify things for people. I think I just come from a world of overcomplication, complexity, procrastination. The way that my brain is wired, I just get overwhelmed with things. And then I have all of these ideas and none of them ever get done. So if I can get things done in a quicker fashion by trying to keep them simpler, even if it's not perfect, but just get things pushed, that's really been my focus since I started Substack, has been really trying to lean into like imperfectionism, not trying to be perfect, trying to publish more, trying to create products. It's the exact same way that I created the second product that I released a few weeks ago. It's like my template pack. I had an idea. I just kind of like most of what I create just kind of like comes in as I'm doing stuff. So I had working on headlines, and I was like trying to look at like my top performing headlines, and it was like um contrarian belief and like a contrasting an assumption. I was like, that's cool. I was like, that could be like a swipe file of like my top templates. I went into my community. I said, hey, would you be interested if I put together my top performing templates for my Substack notes, my headlines, and my article structures into one swipe file? And I had like 38 people were like, yes, I want that. So then I went the next day, I created it. The day after that, and it's just like a single swipe file. The next day, I sent an email and was like, 38 people asked for this. I just created this. This is what it is. Here's the link for it. So, like, this is probably the fastest turnaround time I've had on something in my life, but just had an idea, validated it, created it, sent out a message, and generated sales. We don't need to. I come from worlds of people that are like, they spend 4 months writing 38 emails for the follow-up sequence on the back end of their webinar, and they got to make sure they're in a production studio, and it's like 6 months to get something launched out into the world. And like the chances of it working sometimes are just as good as if it took them 15 minutes to do. If they just would have done like a Facebook or Substack Live with a little bit of a pitch at the end and sent out 3 emails off the top of their head. So I try and simplify the process. Yeah, if you're like a 7-figure business, we're going to add in a few layers of complexity to these things. But for most of us on this journey, we don't need that yet.
Yeah, you don't need to overcomplicate, overthink, or overanalyze. Just be very action oriented. I think that's one of the key traits of being an entrepreneur as well. Like if you have an idea and then you validate it quickly and you build it quickly using like a minimum viable product MVP approach, and be okay with it not being perfect yet, right? And being a bit messy maybe, but improve it as you go. But really, yeah, really, and that as well, treat it like an experiment. I realized that so many things in business come down to it's an experiment. Let's try this out, see if it works. And if it doesn't work, what's the worst that can happen? Usually it's not that bad. And it makes it more fun as well because it's an experiment. Um, Landon, you've been an entrepreneur for 18, 19 years now, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back in time to younger Landon, just starting out, building his first business, what's one lesson, what's one insight you would share with younger Landon?
Yeah, so I actually wrote this down because I was like, these are some of these questions that I like to think about because it's really interesting because I often get asked what I would change. And that's an interesting question because I do believe we are where we are because of the experiences that we've lived. And I like where I am. So I don't think I would go back and change too much because my experiences allowed me to share what I share now. If I could go back and tell my younger self thing, I wrote down 3. I hope that's okay. Um,
Absolutely.
so the first one was telling myself that it's going to take longer than I expected to. That is a really big one. I expected to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. I'm still not a millionaire, just so everyone's very, very clear. But it was really devastating for me when I wasn't a top 30 under 30 in Forbes and I wasn't a millionaire and all of these things that I kind of had set for my trajectory, understanding that it's going to take me longer. And understanding the second one I have here is don't be afraid to find my own path. So understanding that there's going to be the 4-step processes and the 6-step frameworks and the business gurus and the marketing gurus that are going to tell me that I need this book funnel or I need to do this 7-day challenge with these 3 upsells if I want to make $1 million. I've invested in those. I've read the books. I've joined the $50,000 a year masterminds. None of it worked. And it wasn't until I really got intimate with the thought around don't be afraid to do it my way. And success for me isn't going to look like success for anybody else. So knowing that early on, I think could have saved me maybe not time, but a little bit of a mindset shift kind of going into it with just kind of more properly set expectations. And I think the third thing that I think would be great for me early on is probably one of the most difficult things as we get into business, which is really understand that it's about more than money. This is probably going to be part of the thesis of the next book that I'm about to start, but just really investing in mindset work, in myself, in discovering joy, happiness, things that are more life driven, not having my identity consumed by the results and achievements that I have inside of business. Not trying to wrap myself up in, I spent this much on this mastermind, not having people view me for the amount of followers I have or how much money I've made. I think that what we do is so much bigger than business. I think there's so many beautiful byproducts that we get from this journey. And for me, one of the things that I've really realized is that I actually like where I am. And I quote unquote still am not where I envision myself to be, but it's the being in the journey that I've found that I like. And I'm really trying to hold that closer to myself now to realize that that kind of is the entire point. I'm a little bit of like from a philosophical standpoint, an existentialist. So I do believe we can find meaning in however we want in the journey that we're on. But I think those things, so just kind of understanding that it's going to take longer than I expect, not being afraid to kind of deviate from the common path and find my own way, and recognizing that it's going to be about more than just money. And that's not where kind of like the meaning of the journey is going to be made.
I love that. Yeah. And lesson number one is so recognizable. When I first started with my first business, I thought like, okay, I've read all the business books, so I know how this works and I'm just gonna do it. And by the end of the year, I'm gonna have a 6-figure business and making all this money. It took me 18 months to make my first dollar online, my first $5. Like my first sale was a $5 sale and it took me a year and a half. So it doesn't have to take that long, but just know that, it likely is going to take more time than you think. And that's okay. Because I think that's also what lesson number 3 really is for you. It's like the person you become along the way as an entrepreneur, it's like high stakes self improvement because you have to level up. Because if you're not making sales for a few months, that forces you to level up in maybe your level of grit or how disciplined you are or how you can handle setbacks and failures. Then maybe having your first sales call or podcast, you might be nervous about it. That forces you to level up. And then if you look back like years, like how you started and versus how you are now and the person you are now, that level of growth is really cool to look at, while at the same time looking ahead of like, oh, I still have such a long way to go. But that makes business fun to me. It's like okay, the person you become along the way, the skills you learn, the mindset you develop, the beliefs you shatter, right? The limiting beliefs you shatter along the way. To me, that makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's just the hardest thing to learn. So it's like the most important thing that I want to instill in people starting the journey, but it's difficult. Like I wrestle with the fact of like, do we have to experience some of the setbacks before we can recognize that? Because I do believe in some way, shape, or form that contrast is required, where the going through the negative things allows you to appreciate the positive things. There is no black without white. There is no up without down. Like contrast is required to create an understanding and an awareness. I wish I could skip that for people, but if nothing else, if I can plant seeds for lessons that people are going to come to realize, I think that's good enough for now.
So, Landon, the last question I have for you. Having built 9 different businesses, you've practically tried out every monetization method under the sun. What is personally for you your favorite monetization method or business model, specifically for you and your businesses?
So really hard because I have 9 streams of revenue right now. I there's a couple things. I like the revenue stream that gives me the most joy, which evolves over time. So I try and think of what is fun on this journey, and that changes. So that's something that has evolved with me over time, where running webinars and trying to sell high ticket coaching programs used to be what I thought fun. Running ads for a long time was fun. And I'm going into where creating products for specific problems is the most fun for me. So I would say low ticket products for me is the most fun, but having a few higher priced things on the back end allows me to do that without the stress of them having to work, having to pay the bills, having to put the food on the table. So the revenue streams that I've created have given me the flexibility to kind of navigate my business and what I do to generate income in a little bit more of like an ease and flow type of way. But I'd say right now, like what I've done with subliminal selling, what I've done with the template pack, those things to me are just so much fun because I get to effectively live and experiment. And then I get to share the process of how it worked. And the things that allow me the ability to give back to people that might not be able to afford it, I'm really kind of really into right now. Yes, I know the you pay to pay attention and all of these kind of sayings that we've come to believe, but I do recognize that I do have privileges with where I am, where I'm at in business. I know that regardless of price, there's going to be people that might need it but not be able to afford it. So like the template pack is like free plus, and that was an experiment. I made 4 figures on the launch, but it was free because people could choose their price. So I had hundreds of people that took it for free, and I had people that paid $100 for it. So for me, what I like the most right now is the experiments that feel really fun to do. And that's generally when ideas drop in and then I translate that into a product. So like fast turnaround times. I have an entire Substack growth course mapped out that I just like can't bring myself to create right now. So I'm like, that's okay. I'm gonna shelf that. I feel the resistance and I'm going to respect that fact and know that that's okay. And I'm gonna just lean into these things that are feeling a little bit more fun. Um, just kind of deviating completely from the traditional path is like what I find the funnest.
Landon, thanks so much for being in the podcast, man. And thanks for sharing all your insights with us here today. If people want to learn more about you and your work, where should they go?
Yeah, so I think the first off, thank you so much for having me on. This was a ton of fun. I think we covered an absolute ton of information. So I really hope people find value in this journey. And if people are wanting to kind of learn a little bit from me, kind of see what I'm sharing and what I'm doing, Substack is going to be the best place to follow along. I'm publishing daily, weekly for long form content. Landon's Letters is the name of the publication. I'm fairly easy to find. I've been online for a very long time. There's a lot of me out on the internet. And then my website is landonp.com, which will also link people back to the newsletter as well. So I'm here if anybody has any questions based on the stuff we chatted about today.
Yeah, we'll link to both your website and your Substack newsletter in the show notes as well for people who want to check it out. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Right Build Skill podcast, please share it with one person you think can also find this valuable. We really are looking to grow the podcast, especially in the early stages of the podcast. So we appreciate your help. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That would also help us out a lot. With that being said, I hope to see you in the next episode.